How's everyone doing today? It's your boy JJ Domination, and today we're gonna be doing another one of those teams you should consider for a Madden 21 realistic rebuild. Hell, you can do it in Madden 20 if you're just having the itch to use these new rosters that are just downloaded off of the Madden Share or whatever. The Cincinnati Bengals. A lot of storylines that can be made with this franchise, a lot of directions you could take the team, and we'll explain all of that as we get through the roster breakdown and then the overall breakdown of the Cincinnati Bengals in a nutshell. But first, let's start off with the quarterback position. This is the obvious one. The number one overall pick, Joe Burrow, is now here on the Cincinnati Bengals. He is the guy for the foreseeable future. Andy Dalton's out of there. You save $17.1 million or something like that, releasing him. Then you have Ryan Finley, who's pretty much a career backup. He's not really all that good. He was okay in college, but just hasn't been good in the NFL so far. Then we get to the running back room. This running back room is pretty interesting. There's a lot of, nice players in it. And it starts at the top with Joe Mixon, one of the more underrated, one of the more underappreciated backs in the league. He is the only running back since 2018 to have 500 plus carries without a fumble. That's pretty hard to do, especially for a guy like Joe Mixon, who gets a huge workload. To have over 500 carries since 2018 and not have a fumble. Now that I say that, he'll fumble 5 times this year. Just saying. But yeah, that's an actual stat about Joe Mixon. A little fun fact. He's in a contract year, and so is his counterpart, Giovanni Bernard. He's in a contract year as well. Pretty talented receiving back. He's been on this team his whole career. He's been a Cincinnati lifer. One of the rare guys that get a second contract and still play outright. But yeah, he's in a contract year as well. And then you have the other Oklahoma backs outside of Joe Mixon, Samaje Perine and Rodney Anderson. Perine, more of a power back, just your traditional bruiser, not really as fast, not really as explosive. Just, hey, open up the hole. I'm going to run a guy over, put him on the goal line. I mean, he is your prototypical power back if I've ever seen it. And then Rodney Anderson, a really good college running back, just hasn't been able to stay healthy, unfortunately. And health concerns is what led to him slipping in the draft. If you looked at Rodney Anderson, I think the year before he came out when he was playing with Baker Mayfield, and he was a huge part of that Rose Bowl game against Georgia, the one they ultimately came up short in. Rodney Anderson looked like he could have been at least a second-round pick, but he slips into the 6th round because of injuries. But he is a talented player, and maybe if you're not able to bring back Joe Mixon, maybe you try to get something out of Rodney Anderson, a guy who has the potential, just isn't able to stay healthy, you know what I'm saying? And then you got Travion Williams, who proclaimed that he was going to be the best running back in his draft, which was 2019. I hate to break it to you, you're not even top 5 or maybe even top 10 in your class. Just being honest, but hey, maybe in this alternate universe you could be. And then you have Jaquez Patrick from Florida State, more of a special teams guy, but this is a nice running back room to start out with in Madden. In real life running back, you have people that think it's not all that important. You shouldn't really have to pay for them. You shouldn't draft them that high. And then you have some people who, they will acknowledge that there are exceptions to the rule. But yeah, this Bengals running back room is nice to start out with, and they're one of the teams that actually will use a fullback from time to time, and that is Ethan Carter, who is just a decent fullback, you know what I'm saying? Just, yeah, he's out there. He exists. They use him in the passing game, too. And then the wide receiver room, probably one of the more interesting parts about the team. You have A.J. Green, who's in the final year of his contract. Or really, it's not even a contract. It's a franchise tag. And he's in the final, he's only on a franchise tag, which is 1 year, so this could potentially be the last year of A.J. Green in Cincinnati. And, with regression and the fact that he's not a superstar X Factor, at least on these rosters, I don't think he'll be on the Madden 21 official roster either, but just based on what we know about regression, he might fall off in a couple of years. So if you want to help your rookie quarterback immediately, then having A.J. Green is going to be huge. If you do trade him, try to at least get a second-round pick for a player of his caliber. And then you have Tyler Boyd, one of the better slot receivers in football. I think people have caught on to how good Tyler Boyd is. It just took a little while to get there. But Tyler Boyd, pretty good slot receiver, one of the better slot receivers in the game. He's not quite Julian Edelman. I wouldn't even say he's Cooper Kupp or Adam Thielen, but he's not that far off. You know what I'm saying? Like, he's actually pretty good. And then you have John Ross, the perfect example for why you don't draft somebody so high because of what they ran at the 40 or what they ran at the combine in the 40-yard dash. I mean, John Ross broke the record for like the recorded time of a 40-yard dash with a 4.22. But he really hasn't done a whole lot in the NFL. Injuries and inconsistencies have kind of hindered his chances. If you look at John Ross in Madden, he's going to be really good. I mean, he has 97 speed. As long as you can just get open, that speed is going to come into effect. Trust me, I know. If I'm doing a fantasy draft or if I'm trying to do like a rebuild in my own spare time, I'm always looking to get John Ross on the team somehow. But in real life, the Bengals did decline his fifth-year option, so this is basically a one-year prove-it situation for John Ross. He could potentially not be here anymore, depending on where you go with the franchise. And then you have Auden Tate, just kind of a red zone threat. The hands are a little inconsistent. He's not the greatest separator, but he had some moments last year where he looked pretty good. So maybe there's something there in Auden Tate. He was kind of one of those sleeper receivers in the 2018 class. So maybe there's something there for Auden Tate. And then you have T. Higgins, who was the 33rd overall pick in the draft, a.k.a. the first pick in the second round. T. Higgins, interesting enough, he actually grew up a Bengals fan, and he looked up to A.J. Green when he was coming up in the world as a wide receiver. Interesting enough, and he's going to be wearing Chad Johnson's number, Chad Ochocinco's number, 85, and he could be the heir apparent to A.J. Green. Maybe A.J. Green can be a mentor to T. Higgins in the storyline aspect of things, or maybe development, like within the game, scenario engine stuff. And then you have Alex Erickson, another slot receiver, decent though. He's not a bad player. And then Mike Thomas, he kind of exists. But yeah, this wide receiver room is pretty good to start out with, better than most. So, in terms of Madden, you have a 90 overall and an 83 overall. Now, for the Madden 21 rosters, that may be altered a little bit, or it could stay the same. But you have two good options to start off with, an intriguing piece in John Ross and then T. Higgins, the rookie. Tight end room, it's basically C.J. Uzomah and Drew Sample. Mason Schreck is okay, but I mean, he's the third tight end on the team. C.J. Uzomah is okay, like he's not terrible, he's just okay. And Drew Sample was actually the second round pick for the Bengals last year. And a lot of people were scratching their heads at the time. Me too. I didn't really view Drew Sample as a second-round pick. I thought he would be like good value in the fourth, but he was a second-round pick. I think he was like the third or fourth tight end taken in the class, which is kind of interesting at the time. But, first-year tight ends don't really come into the league lighting the world on fire anyway, like historically. So, or at least recently, I guess you should say. But Drew Sample, maybe year two he takes a big jump. It's going to be important for him. And C.J. Uzomah is just a nice, safe pair of hands. And then you have the long snapper Clark Harris, a.k.a. the 52 overall tight end, because Madden does not, for some reason, have an official long snapper position. But yet you can make, different players long snappers. And then you get to the offensive line. You have Jonah Williams at left tackle, who was your first-round pick last year. Didn't play due to injury, but in a sense, it's like the Bengals have two first-round picks this year because Jonah Williams will be making his debut this year, and so will Joe Burrow. So in a sense, it's almost like you have two first-round picks. And then you have Isaiah Prince, who was a late-round pick in last year's draft. Good depth. I don't really see him being a starter. Could be a nice swing tackle, but, Jonah Williams is the much better player between the two. Then you look at guard. Guards are really underwhelming for this team. And it starts with Alex Redmond. I don't even know if he'll be the starter at left guard. I mean, you have Michael Jordan, not the one that won 6 rings with the Bulls, but, the one that's not really all that good from Ohio State. And then you have Akeem Adeniji. yeah, this left guard position not looking good. I don't even know if any of those guys will start, and we'll talk about why later. And then you have Trey Hopkins at center. What's interesting is I think Hopkins used to be a guard, and Billy Price was actually drafted to be their center, but Billy Price was awful at center for the Bengals, and they moved him to guard. But Trey Hopkins is a good backup center, like a really, really good backup center. Like, you know, if your center went down for 3 weeks, you can rely on him, but Trey Hopkins for, like, your whole season, I don't know, man. And then this team brought in Xavier Su'a-Filo, who, you know, he's bounced around a little bit in the NFL. You know, played with the Texans. I don't think he played with the Jags. He did play with the Cowboys, though. I know that. And, you know, 3 years, $10 million. Really, really good value for the Bengals right here. He is a replacement level type of player, but he's a really good backup. But he is going to be asked to start. And then Billy Price. He was a former first-round pick. I think he's entering year 3. At year 3, he's played center and guard. He hasn't really been particularly good at either position. And he was drafted in like the early 20s by the Bengals. Yeah, this is a guy whose fifth-year option most likely will not be picked up. But, you know, maybe there's still something there. Maybe he can turn around his career. Because, I mean, he's still a relatively young player, you know. Then at right tackle, Bobby Hart, just awful. Just an awful player. All right, moving on to the defense. The defensive line is really good early on. I mean, you have Carlos Dunlap. He is, you know, in his early 30s, but still going to be a, you know, productive player early on for you at least until his contract expires. Whenever that is, I think in a couple years maybe. And then you have Khalid Kareem, who this team took a flyer on in the 6th round, I believe, from Notre Dame. Just a solid, you know, high energy guy on the defensive line. That's what he'll bring to the team if he does get to play. And then at the right defensive end spot, you got Carl Lawson right here and Sam Hubbard. Sam Hubbard, a nice rotational player, you know, for the defensive line. And then you got Carl Lawson. The sad part about him up to this point has been the fact that he just can't stay healthy. He's got all the tools. He's got the athleticism, the strength, the moves, the length, the body type. I mean, he has everything that you need to be a good pass rusher in the NFL and to even be great. But injuries have really slowed him down. A ton of knee injuries in his career, even going back to Auburn, which led to him slipping in the 4th round. I still viewed him pretty highly, like as a early 2nd round pick. But, man, it's crazy to see Carl Lawson, you know, just, you know, because he has it in him. Like, sometimes you'll watch a player and you know that they have it in them to be really good. But with him, it's just been injuries. When he's out there, like, he is, like, you know, impacting the game here or there. It's kind of hard to on a bad team, but, you know, he does what he can. You know, he does what he does. I don't know. I don't really know what to say, but he's a good player. He just needs to stay healthy. All right, defensive tackle. You got Geno Atkins. You know, this is the final year of his contract. You know, he's been a good player up to this point. Maybe you let him go. Maybe you keep him. I think most likely you let him go. And then you got the big ticket free agent right here, DJ Reader, you know, coming over from the Texans on a 4-year deal. Going to be this team's run defending nose tackle, basically. But he's going to be playing in a 4-3, so, you know. You know how it's going to go. He's going to be solid, though. He does have a little bit of juice as a pass rusher, but he's just there to clog lanes. And then you have some good depth right here. Ryan Glasgow, Renell Wren, who you drafted last year out of Arizona State, Andrew Brown, Josh Tupou. You have some solid depth right here at defensive tackle, so that's not really a position you have to worry about right away. You have a lot of young guys, too, a lot of 25 and under guys on the defensive line. So it's something you really don't have to worry about. And then your linebacking core, we'll look at the entire thing. I mean, you have Jordan Evans, more of a run defender, but a good sideline athlete. Brady Shelton, I think, was undrafted or maybe a 7th round out of Ferris State. You know, just a good athlete at the linebacker position. Don't really know a whole ton about him. And then this team signed Josh Bynes. What's interesting about Josh Bynes is he just played for the Ravens last year. I think he played for the Cardinals. I'm not 100% sure. He might have played for the Steelers too. But yeah, he's been around the block, just a veteran linebacker, probably going to help right away with the linebacking core. Then this team took Logan Wilson in the 3rd round in this year's draft. I know on the screen it says experience 1 year. I think that's a glitch in the dude's roster. And then you have Austin Carlito, more of a rotational guy, maybe even a special teamer. Hardy Nickerson, decent depth, I guess. And then Marcus Bailey from Purdue, don't really know a ton about. And then Tremaine Pratt, who was drafted last year out of NC State. Good athlete, has the potential to be pretty solid for this team. And then Akeem Davis-Gaither, who was a 3rd-round pick, I believe, or a 4th-round pick in this class. Yeah, 4th-round pick. And again, just ignore the overalls. It's someone's created roster. It's not like a complete reflection on the players. But the linebacking core looks decent. Maybe, your future starters could be Jermaine Pratt, Akeem Davis-Gaither, and Logan Wilson with, like, Jordan Evans and, maybe Austin Carlito for depth. But, yeah, it looks pretty solid. For now, you just got to grow those players. And then you look at the cornerback room. Just some pretty good depth, but you're just looking for that star player. You got William Jackson, who's actually pretty solid. He's a good corner. Doesn't really get the recognition for it, but he is a good player for the Bengals. And then this team did bring in Trey Waynes to be another outside corner for the Bengals on a big contract, like 3 years, $42 million. Then they gave Mackenzie Alexander a 1 year, $4 million deal to be this team's nickel corner. Then you have some solid depth like Darius Phillips, LaShawn Sims, Tony Brown, who was decent for the Packers, Greg Maben, and then Torrey McTyre. Like, you have some decent depth. Like, the depth is fine, but you're really looking for guys to emerge, and you're looking to probably get a star corner eventually. And at free safety, you got Jesse Bates, who in his rookie year looked really good. Last year wasn't too bad. Like, he did make some plays last year, but, a little under the radar for Madden. And then Brandon Wilson, more of a special teamer. Then you get the strong safety. You have Von Bell and Sean Williams. Sean Williams more of a box safety. I think Von Bell is more versatile than Sean Williams, but you can use Sean Williams as like a sub linebacker, maybe a dime safety. You can use him in a lot of different ways. Same thing with Von Bell. I mean, he can even play nickel corner at times. He's not going to have the press coverage to do so, but man and zone are pretty solid. And then Trayvon Henderson, another special teamer. Randy Bullock as your kicker. Kevin Herbert as your punter. But yeah, when you look at the Bengals overall, like in general, number one, the rookie quarterback storyline. I mean, Joe Burrow, you get to basically dictate how his career is going to go because you're going to be playing with him. You're going to be in control of the Bengals and of Joe Burrow. So now you have the challenge of building the team up to not necessarily his likeness, but to where he can play his best. Because if you look at what he was able to do in college, his final year of college, his senior year, when everything was right, when everything kind of fit like a glove, Joe Burrow was balling, and he had a historically great college football season. Normally if you have like a solid season or an above average season, yeah, I would call that a fluke or call it a 1 year wonder. But when you have a historically great season like that, like a historical college football season, it's kind of hard to call that a fluke. You know what I mean? Like, it's not like on the level of Mitchell Trubisky when he was at North Carolina, where he just had a solid, above average college football season where he broke out. It's not that same situation at all. This guy won the Heisman, had a historically great year, so it's kind of hard to take that away from him. So yeah, you have the opportunity to basically control everything with Joe Burrow, control the narrative, control how the team is built around him. And then early on, you're going to have critical contract decisions with your top 3 players. AJ Green on the franchise tag. Geno Atkins, I think it's the final year of his contract. Could be wrong. Maybe he got an extension I don't know about. And then Joe Mixon. In real life, extension talk has opened up, but final year of his contract right there. And then you have guys like Carlos Dunlap, who could be cut down the road. Giovanni Bernard, John Ross, Sean Williams, players like that. So this team could look completely different in like 2 years. And then also, you have to consider the division they're in. You know, they're in the same division with the Baltimore Ravens, who are viewed as a Super Bowl contender. They have a stacked roster, a stacked team. Lamar Jackson kind of taking the league by storm. The defense is really good over there in Baltimore as well. They got the corners to hang with anybody. It's almost like the pass rush is irrelevant because they have the corners and the safety play to just not even have to worry about it that much. And then you look at the Steelers. They have a great culture. They have a good history of beating you guys, the Bengals. And then you look at the Browns, like their roster's pretty stacked, and eventually they got to put it together. And in Madden, the Browns are a pretty good team. You know, in Madden, in Sim, they seem to do pretty good. So, you know, you're in a tough division. If you were in the AFC East, you probably are competing for the number 2 seed with the Dolphins and, you know, the rest of those teams. You're probably fighting for the 2 seed. But the fact that you're like the 2 seed in your division, not like the 2 seed in the AFC, you're probably competing for second place. But because you're in the AFC North, you're looking at last place. So you have to do what you can to build this team up, get your team over the hump, and build it around Joe Burrow. Build it around the number 1 overall pick and see where you can go from there. So there are a few roadblocks in your way. You have the rookie quarterback. You get to write the story of his career. Tough division. Your coach is already on the hot seat because he was terrible last year, and he just got the job. So there's a lot of variables with this team. Those are just like the top 3 that come to mind. But yeah, this has been the Cincinnati Bengals, and I think the next team is going to surprise a lot of people. But until next time, peace.